Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You know, when we hear about other people's lives or read them, they can come across as, well, maybe sad or depressing or maybe exciting. Like we don't know because we don't know what it's like to walk somebody else's journey. I brought that up because my interview today is like, oh my goodness, it sounds exciting, parts of it anyway. Let's find out more. She is an author. She likes to rescue animals, and she's on I think it's a hobby farm. We'll find
Yeah.
out anyway, like I said. So here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Brandee Radford. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Nancy. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. So now you were born in Saskatchewan, right?
Yes, I was born in a very small town in Saskatchewan in 1964. So I'm a 58-year-old woman here, which I know is kind of scary to me, thinking I'm going to be 59 in a couple months. But
Okay.
yeah, so I was born in a small town. My parents weren't happy in the prairies anymore because it was a pretty crappy place to live, actually. And they decided to sell everything and uproot everybody, and we moved to BC, which was a huge thing because I'd never seen mountains before in my life.
Yeah.
That was a pretty scary thing for me. I get motion sick too.
Oh,
So I was
how
I
old
was
were you? Oh, sorry.
I don't even know how old I was. I was pretty young, probably six,
Okay.
seven,
Yeah.
maybe five or six, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a big move for us, and my parents were looking for that perfect place, and we moved from town to town. So I've lived in so many small communities in my life, and we ended up settling in a small town called Lillooet, which is dubbed Mile Zero of the Gold Rush Trail, which is funny that I ended up in a town that was associated with gold, and that's kind of where I ended up.
Yeah, I had a niece who lived there for years.
A niece,
Pardon?
a niece. You had a niece live there?
Yeah, a niece that lived there for years.
Oh, yeah.
She's since
Okay.
passed, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And I know it was a really hot spot.
Yeah, hottest spot in Canada. Well, Lytton and Lillooet were always vying for the hot spot. So
Right, yeah, for sure. Now, so you got into, like, when you talk about ending in a gold rush. Well, let's backtrack a little bit because you were, was it in Lillooet when you decided to leave home?
yeah, I was a real rebel and pretty much a troublemaker. I quit school very early in life. I've only got my grade 8 education, actually. So I was a rebel and just wanted to be on my own. I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. I've always looked for adventure in my life, but I was getting into adventurous things in the wrong areas of life when I was younger, and got into too much drinking, a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of drugs, stuff like that. And then I ended up being a single mother at 18. I ended up moving to the city. So I left Lillooet in search of adventure and ended up with a child at 18. And then I decided I wanted to change my life. There's something that kind of just switched in me one day. And that's sort of in my book that things just started really getting to me, and I wanted to improve my life. So I signed up for a travel agent course, and I was going to be a travel agent because I wanted to travel the world. And I thought this would be the perfect job for me. And then I met somebody through, actually it was through a newspaper ad that I put in the paper, that this is how I met my husband, and this is what led me to gold mining.
Yeah, now gold mining was quite something for you, right? Because you learned to run monstrous machinery and stake your own claims, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was the type of girl who didn't even like to camp. I had my nails done all the time. I was always dressed up. I always looked good. I didn't really like camping too much. And here I met this fella he was new to the gold mining industry himself. So he'd only mined previously the year before he met me, and he wasn't actually doing it on his own. He was being trained by somebody else. So when we met, it was his first year on his own, and my first year ever being up in the Yukon, which was a whole experience in itself, because the Yukon is a lot different than Vancouver. And it's definitely a unique place to go. And I was whisked off into the woods, basically in the middle of nowhere,
Yes.
which was it wasn't even scary to me at first because I was just so naive. I didn't really even understand what was going on. I was just out on this adventure. But the first time I was dropped off in camp, we were dropped off in the middle of nowhere. Literally, it was an hour flight outside of Dawson City by helicopter. And there was 3 of us that were dropped off in the middle of nowhere to start up this bulldozer and start working our claims and getting everything going. And we ended up being stuck out there for 3 days. So we didn't have any food or anything because a big storm came in. And yeah, so it was an interesting adventure. And I just went from there. I didn't really know what my job would be when I first went to camp with my husband. I just thought I was going to be a cook, and then I got really sick of that pretty quick. I wanted to go down and I wanted to be with the guys and I wanted to be adventurous, and so he stuck me in equipment. And actually, for the first while, I would sit with him stuffed inside the cab of one of these big bulldozers or excavators, and I would just watch him. And that's how I learned. And eventually, I just started running everything, including a big semi truck. And I ran bulldozers, excavators, semi trucks, loaders, everything you can think of. I was running it all. I even flew a helicopter or an airplane once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
That was really quite something because the pilot was hungover and he showed me I was flying from Whitehorse to our camp, and he showed me what to do, and it was actually pretty simple until we got to where we were supposed to land, and I couldn't wake him up. He was totally passed out, and I was flying in circles around our camp airstrip, and my husband's standing down below me, what the heck is going on with these guys? Yeah. So yeah, it was a pretty adventurous life, all right.
Oh my goodness. So how long were you in the Yukon doing the gold mining?
I started mining I met my husband in 1996, and I went mining with him in 1997. And I stopped mining with him in about 2010, or in about 2010 it was. I opened a restaurant because the story's in the book, but me and my husband ended up divorcing, and I knew that I needed to step away from gold mining because there's a little bit of abuse and stuff in our relationship, and I needed to step out of that situation. So I opened a restaurant. I ended up opening 2 restaurants, and so I stopped mining about 2010 and continued on with that.
Wow. Well, you mentioned your book a couple of times, so let's talk to about that now. What's the title of your book?
The Chain.
The Chain?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a copy of it here.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Perfect.
Yeah, it's called The Chain.
Sorry, go ahead.
The reason it's called The Chain is, well, one time I'll start from the beginning. When we first we started mining on one creek, and when you mine that creek out, you have to find other ground or creeks to mine. So we staked another creek called Matson Creek, and I'd heard stories about this area, about this man that used to live there, and he was there for 40 years, and he had been murdered. Some people say he was murdered, other people say he was just killed by wolves, like by a wolf pack, but we never really did find out the truth to that. But everybody had been looking for his gold because he was on a fairly decently rich creek, and his gold was just gone when they found him dead. And so the minute I stepped off the helicopter on an airstrip, landing on this site that we were going to start mining, I thought to myself, I said to my husband, if I was John Matson, his name was John Matson, the original prospector, and I said, if I was him, where would I hide this gold that everybody's looking for? And there's kind of this big rock outcropping in the distance that I could see off in the distance. And for some reason, I just said to my husband, that's where I would hide the gold. If I were him, that's where I would put it, because you could always see that rock face, no matter if it's spring, summer, winter, fall, whatever. And my husband kind of laughed at me and just poo-shot it all off and said, if it was that easy, everybody would have found this gold, right? Yeah. So it took me a few months to actually talk him into taking me up to this rock outcropping, because I was terrified of bears, and that's in the book. There's many have been chased by bears, and all kinds of things have happened to me with bears, so I'm terrified of bears. So when I finally got him to go out to this rock crop with me one morning that I finally talked him into it. I came across, okay, I have all my little props here. So I came across this, I found this coffee can almost instantly as soon as I went up there. And inside the coffee can was a whole bunch of paperwork relating to this man, this prospector, John Matson. And as I dug deeper into the paperwork that I'd found in there, there was a newspaper clipping of him and his new bride, who just happened to be Klondike Kate, who's the most famous woman in all of the Klondike, and somebody who I'd always looked up to because the things that she went through in the 1900s to do what she did and to make her fortune was really interesting to me. So I'd always been fascinated by her, and to find out that he had been married to her was just like crazy. And in the bottom of this can, I kind of shook it and I could hear something in there, and there's a little paper box in this can. So this is this little paper box. It's very old and it's all wound up with string and stuff. And inside this little paper box was this beautiful watch chain that I have right here. So, and this watch chain is full of little nuggets, and this is woolly mammoth ivory.
Right.
And this little coin hanging here is from the 1890 California Gold Rush.
Right.
And so I found out that this was his prized possession, this was his watch chain that he kept everywhere. And it led me to the museum in Dawson City, where I took all my little goodies. And I talked to the curator there, and she led me to some files, private files on Klondike Kate up in their little special room that they took me to. And I started researching Klondike Kate and found out this whole love story between these two people. And so my book ended up becoming my story of this naive young woman going out mining in the bush in the middle of nowhere and having no idea what was going on, and all the things that I went through, and then finding this can. And then I flashed back to the early 1900s with Klondike Kate and John Matson and their love story. And I found out through all my research that Klondike Kate and I led parallel lives, basically, because she became very wealthy. She was one of the most wealthiest women in Dawson City at the time. She fell in love with a bartender who managed to steal all her money from her, and he promised to marry her, but he ended up marrying somebody else. And so she ended up penniless. And that's what happened to me. I was quite well off while I was gold mining. My husband happened to decide he wanted to be with somebody else and left me penniless. And I had to start from scratch. And that's my second book, by the way.
Okay. All right.
Is how I started from scratch and what I did from there to get to where I am now. So.
Right. That's why I said people's journeys are so fascinating, you know?
There's so many stories. Yeah, everybody has a story. I've learned that.
And you don't know how many people tell me my life is not interesting. And to me, it's like, well, listen, your life is different than mine. Therefore, to me, it's interesting, you know?
Oh, yes. Everybody has a story. You just have to, it's really easy to actually, to write a book or to write your memoir. You just start by writing the 10 most important things that happened to you in your life. That to me is almost your chapters. And you can then break it down to, so if you take your 10 most important things that happened to you in your life, and then take one of those most important things and then break them down into 10 most important, that's how I came up with my chapters for my book.
Because I've tried for years, you know, to write about some of the things that I experienced as a young child. And like I became my job was to skin and clean rabbits at 7, which was probably common in my day. You know, like I'm 74 years old.
It's not now.
No, it's not now, but and there was a lot of abuse in the family, but it ends up sounding like I'm feeling sorry for myself. Like when I reread it, it's like, oh no, I can't put that out.
Oh no, but that's so interesting to other people to hear what people have gone through, and people like to see vulnerability too. Like they like to see the vulnerable part of somebody's life, and because then they can connect with that and understand that, you know,
that's the hard part. Yeah, that's the hard part for me.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so now all of this time, now you had your child, your first child. I think you had another child after that?
No, I only have one child. My husband had 2 also.
Oh.
Now, the decision was made not to include any of our children in the book because it was so complicated. For them. They did come up during the summer, and they spent time with us like all summer. They were there working and learning their own, like both of his girls also ran equipment. My son did not. He wasn't interested in the least.
Yeah.
But his children did, and it was just too complicated the way we had to get people to look after them for certain parts of the time, and then one child ended up getting into some trouble, and it was just too much because I wanted to make this book short, because it was my first book. I didn't want to drag all this stuff on,
Right.
but who knows, I might actually get, describe this stuff more in another book and get more into all this kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So now at this point, has your son read your book?
Has he read it now?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And did he give you any feedback? Like, I'm just sort of curious about his thoughts on it.
Oh yeah, he thought it was great, and he's very proud of me, and he's very accomplished himself. Like he owns his own hair salon, and he does very good for himself. He was just never interested in that kind of thing, but he finds it very interesting to read, and he knows everything. So
yeah.
He knows a lot more than in the book. So
very good. Yeah. Hey, he would. I bet you if he would be interested, maybe he would like to be interviewed.
Oh, sure.
That would be so cool. So now you have a second book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've just started it. Okay. So what saved me during when this all happened, when my divorce happened, it turned very, very nasty. Okay. It took 8 years for us to get a divorce, because not only did we have the gold mine, we had 4 other businesses in total. Okay. I had 2 restaurants, and then we had a mini storage unit and grocery store and whatever. So we had a whole bunch of things going on, and it became a very nasty divorce. And instead of going to a psychiatrist or a counselor or whatever, I happened to buy a Harley Davidson. I'd never even ridden a bike in my life. I didn't even like people that rode them. I thought they were bad people or whatever. But I was friends with this fellow that I'd met after my divorce, and he'd bought this motorcycle for his wife who never wanted it. And I walked into this garage, and here's this motorcycle sitting there, and he wanted to sell it. And I just, for whatever reason, said, I'll buy it. How much do you want for it? And then I went and took a course on how to ride this thing. And I rode for 22,000 kilometers all over Canada and Washington State.
Oh my, yeah, wow.
And my thing just kind of.
Pardon?
Can you still see me?
Yes.
Oh, for some reason you're gone off my screen, so I'll just keep talking. So I rode this motorcycle, and it was my psychologist. It saved me. I loved that bike. I cranked the music while I was riding. I cried. I rode everywhere by myself. It saved me, and now I don't ride my motorcycle at all anymore. It kind of came into my life at the time that I needed it, and yeah.
Life is interesting like that, isn't it? Like, the way things will pop into your life when you so need it, right?
It's exactly what happened to me. Like, this motorcycle literally saved my life. I think that I could have ended up on the streets. Right. I started to dabble in drinking again at first. This thing just saved me. It just gave me purpose or something. It gave me a community too, because even though I was riding mostly by myself, motorcycles have their own community, and that saved me. So my next book kind of starts off from there and goes through my adventures with my motorcycle. And
awesome. So now you're living, let's see, where are you? Are you
in Kamloops?
Oops, right? Yeah. On a 14-acre hobby farm. Well, that's a good sized farm.
Yes. So I met somebody else eventually, and we've been together now for 8 years. And we started out in Langley, living in Langley, and we built a few houses there and made enough money because real estate in Vancouver was doing really good. And we sold those houses and moved here because my whole family lives here. And actually, this is where my restaurant was, but it's a smaller town outside of Kamloops. So I'm kind of back in the area that I started again. Mm-hmm. I left this area because I didn't want to run into my husband and his girlfriend, and I just wanted to stay away from this area. Yeah. So I'm back here, and we love it. And I've always wanted animals. I've always had dogs, but I've always wanted farm animals. And a couple of rescues came my way, and that's how we started with that. And I just got a new baby goat last night, actually. I was up all night with this little baby goat. He's only about this big, and he's crying because he's not being on his own. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I just love them.
Yeah. I can understand. I used to sit for people's animals, and farm animals are so much fun to babysit or take care
Oh,
of.
yeah.
So geese
Yeah.
are not too smart though, I have to say. Sometimes
I don't have any of those. I don't think I'll get any.
they'll
I had
stick.
chickens though. I had chickens. The roosters are a little bit of a pain in the butt too. They can be aggressive. Like I have one that attacks me all the time. So
Yeah, yeah. They can be.
I still love them.
Yeah, I learned not to pet a ram.
Oh, did he bite you?
But yeah, but it was so interesting to me because apparently we had a dog when I was very young. It died when I was like maybe 7 or 6 years old, something like that.
Oh yeah.
But I never knew how much I loved animals until I moved to
Mm.
Chilliwack and met my husband who lived up in Ryder Lake, you know.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden I'm discovering that I absolutely love animals so much.
Mm.
With him, when we married, I not only had a stepson and step daughter, I also had a step dog and 2 step cats. So it was wonderful. Anyway,
Yeah, animals make your life worth it.
yeah, it's
love
just
them.
that they fill that gap that you're not, maybe something you're not getting from whatever it is in life sometimes, right?
I just hope that I don't turn into the crazy animal lady that has so many animals that I have to get rid of some of them.
Well, at least it's on a big acre farm and not,
Yeah.
you know, not like a crazy cat lady who has 30 in their home, you know.
No, no.
So now we're just going to wind this up a little bit. So your hobbies, I was just reading your hobbies. It's like you like to go hiking, walking your dogs, gardening, cooking, and rescuing farm animals.
Right.
So other than the goat, the baby goat, what animals have you rescued?
We have 2 mini horses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we have a pure white albino who will eventually go blind, I found out, because she's pure white. She came to us with the name Evie, but I changed her name to Stevie for Stevie Nicks because Stevie Nicks is my favorite. Gold Dust Woman, Gold Nugget Woman, you know.
Yeah.
When my movie is turned into a book, I'm hoping to have all Stevie Nicks songs. So that's my goal. So I have that 2 miniature horses, a miniature donkey. Her name is Pebbles, and she's the sweetest thing with the big soulful eyes. I just love her. A goat named Albert, and then our new goat whose name is Hoover. 8 chickens and 2 roosters.
Oh my God, that's so cool. So now let's get back to your book for just a moment. The chain, where could people buy it?
You can buy it you can go to www.goldnuggetwoman.com, and that's my website. You can buy it. There's a link to buy it direct from there.
Okay.
If you go on Facebook, you can look me up at Gold Nugget Woman. So everything is under Gold Nugget Woman.
Okay.
Instagram, just look up Gold Nugget Woman.
Okay, I'll make sure.
Yeah. And it's on Amazon now too, actually.
Okay,
so
great.
it just launched on Amazon 4 days ago.
Oh,
So,
nice. Okay.
Yeah, just search the chain Brandee Radford. And
Pardon?
just search the chain Brandee Radford on Amazon, and there you go.
It'll pop up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really
Thank you. It was really great.
Just stay on camera, okay? While I say
Okay.
to the audience. So yes, everybody, you've been listening to Brandee Radford. And if you want her book, I'm going to give you the contact information, but it's called The Chain. And I will include her website, so you can go there directly if you wish. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this show. I hope you like